Welcome back. Out of many one, Jamaica is a melting pot of races that make up one culture. And as we count down to Jamaica 55, we highlight the Jamaican Chinese with Nicole Hufat of the Chinese Benevolence Center. Good morning and welcome.
Morning.
Thank you.
Good to see you once again.
Once again?
You.
She's a regular.
Small Jamaica has been good to us.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the history of the Chinese and how they came into Jamaica.
On July 30th, 1854, 267 Chinese arrived in the island on a ship called Epsom. They were coming from Hong Kong, and it was a new life for them. It was a completely different culture, different ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. That tradition continued well into the early 20th century when they set up shops in all villages practically across the island. So the great thing about it was they initiated a spirit of entrepreneurship where they extended credit to good customers. They were willing to barter. They were willing to sell in small quantities if the customer could not afford larger quantities. Mm-hmm. So they have become, as a Chinese Jamaican community, endemic to the success of Jamaican society.
Why did they come? Was it an indentured servant relationship that caused them to come, or were they running away from something?
The Chinese arrived in the post-emancipation time in Jamaica during that era. And they were intended to replace the former workers who had worked the cane fields. Now, when their contracts expired, many decided to stay in the island and open these shops.
Mm-hmm. I suspect that most of the Chinese who live in Jamaica now are Jamaican born.
That is correct, yes.
So they accepted our culture, obviously, but what about those? Do they accept the Chinese culture still, or no?
We are Jamaicans first. The way we embrace Chinese culture is demonstrated by the kind of signature events that we have annually at the Chinese Benevolent Association. For example, the New Year Spring Garden Party. So we are really Jamaican people. We love our ackee and saltfish the same way we love our chicken and ham choy. So it's a matter of assimilation and a process of absorption that has taken place over the years from one generation
because you want to be a part of the Jamaican society and culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are Chinese Jamaicans well represented in commerce, in business, in the professions, medicine, law, all across the spectrum.
Yeah. How big is the community?
A few thousand. There is a very large Chinese Jamaican community as well in North America. And we keep in touch because they're family and they're friends. As a matter of fact, the Caribbean Chinese Association Toronto is now planning to build a basic school in Lucy, Hanover. And those funds have been earmarked for that project.
Why that area?
Arbitrarily chosen. Okay. The need happens to be there.
Okay.
So that's one of the initiatives that the overseas Chinese have taken on.
How much of your heritage would you say have you managed to hold on to and pass down to the generations that are in Jamaica now? And how do you try to maintain some of those practices? We
celebrate the big Chinese New Year, which is the most important festival in China. We also have celebrations for Mid-Autumn Festival, which takes place in October. We have at CBA Center as well Mandarin classes for children as well as for adults. At one point in our history, we also had a Chinese school so that there would be no dilution to the detriment of the language. And There are certain ways we have of dealing with certain circumstances. For example, we put primary importance on the family, on one's elders, on a very strong work ethic. Chinese Jamaicans will tell you they had to get up before dawn to open the shop and close the shop well after to midnight at times. So we try and celebrate our children. We celebrate Children's Day. So it does pass on. We embrace our Jamaicanness, and that's all of our Jamaica 55 is all about, out of many.
Yeah. Are the Chinese still coming?
Yes, there is a community of newly arrived immigrant Chinese, many of whom have set up businesses in downtown Kingston. And we encourage them to join the Chinese Benevolent Association.
Explain your Chinese heritage.
Personally?
Personally.
My grandfather came to this island in the 1920s. He was an immigrant shopkeeper, opened a small business serving the community of Woodford in rural St. Andrew. I remember as a little girl going into the shop and taking sweeties and of course he sold the things that were basic to the community in which my family resided: flour, cornmeal, school supplies, that sort of thing, rice, oil. And for us as a family, Chinese New Year was the very pinnacle of what we tried to achieve as a family. Education was important. We had huge feasts where my grandfather would cook some amazing dishes.
Can imagine.
Right. So it's been he passed in the 1980s, but many of us in our family still do have the continuity.
Do you speak any of the different languages that come out of?
Can I tell you, I spent 4 years learning Mandarin. I got to the intermediate stage, and let me tell you, right now I can remember the courtesies of the language.
How are you and stuff?
Ni hao, ni hao.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's
Hello, how are you?
And that's as much as you're going.
No.
You remember a little more?
Let's see. 你叫什么名字? What's your name? What's your full name? 你叫你卡尔?
But they speak different languages.
There are different languages because the number of Chinese ethnic groups
Are vast.
are enormous.
Okay.
The Chinese Jamaican community is descended largely from the Hakka group. And
so that's a language,
that's a language in and of itself.
Before we go, because we don't have much time, what would you like for the rest of Jamaica who don't have your heritage to remember about the Chinese?
I'd say to remember us as embracing the psyche and the culture of Jamaican society. We have been through a process of absorption, which has taken place, decades ago, but that absorption continues today with the newly arrived members of the community.
Okay.
And as always, we are Jamaican, and we enjoy being Jamaican, and we welcome the public to come to any of our publicly organized events.
Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right, board member with the Chinese Benevolent Association, Nicole Hufat.
That's it for today's Countdown to Jamaica 55.